Hello. You've reached Bonefish. Please leave a message.
So I just listened to the new podcast, and I really liked it. Obviously, I love Ark, but at the end you said that if there's anyone who, like, hates Merriweather and is, like, an Ark purist to, like, hit you up. And I can't speak for myself. I like both. But it reminded me of, if you go on, like, Rate Your Music on Dance Manatee, I think, like, the first review is some guy who's like, can you believe the next album these three would make together would be Merriweather? What a bunch of fucking sellouts. And I think that's, like, the funniest thing ever. Because, like, you brought up the sentiment as a joke, but there are, like, people out there who actually think that, and I think that's really fucking funny.
And we're back.
And we're back.
Back again, episode 6. I'm Justin, by the way.
Hey, I'm Christian.
There are definitely Ark heads out there.
Yeah.
Which is funny to think about, that there's Ark heads and that there's people who can't stand Merriweather Post Pavilion.
Yeah.
And it is the same 3 members who made both albums, which is cool to think about.
It is, yeah.
Vastly different.
Of course, years on, and of course, you know, it's maybe a little naive to just paint it as, oh, these 3 dudes getting back together to make music.
Oh, yeah.
It's maybe disingenuous to say, like, oh, the next time these 3 guys got together, you know, they made Merriweather Post Pavilion. Like, obviously, there'd been
it
years
happened
and
in a
years
vacuum.
Yeah.
But that's what's cool about this band is, you know, you have these moving parts, and the different combinations are cool. And
yeah,
even the same 3 make a totally different record the next time.
Yeah.
But I forgot to bring this, like, we didn't really touch on it that much when we talked about Ark, but so the Ark got a 8.6, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was just looking at the Pitchfork scores.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, like, kind of the beginning of, like, a pretty good run of, like, Best New Music, pretty high scores for the band. I don't know if any other, like, bands are really, like, up there in terms of, like, Pitchfork scores and that kind of run, you know? Like, literally, like
at that time, or
yeah, it's literally, like,
general?
their next, like, 5-6 albums,
Mm-hmm.
not even including solo work, you know? Or maybe if you included solo work, I mean, you had Ark, then you had Sung Tongs, Feels,
Strawberry Jam,
Person Pitch, and then Merriweather. Tomboy also, I think, got Best New Music.
Yeah.
So it's like 7 straight records where they're pretty well reviewed. I mean, it's
critical darlings.
I'm trying to think of any other bands. Maybe Deer Hunter. I think Deer Hunter was pretty consistent. And
yeah. Have you seen their, like, Pitchfork rescored things they promote? Like,
oh, yeah. that the internet loses its mind over.
Yeah. Like, oh, actually, Turn on the Bright Lights by Interpol actually isn't good.
Yeah. I love how they downgraded
fuck
Grimes because she married Elon Musk.
Yeah, it's like how like pulled by the contemporary flavor are you guys?
Yeah. Was
it Visions they rescored?
No, it was her 2020 album, I think Miss Anthropocene or whatever.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which I think I only like listened to it once. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Grimes is real anymore. I can't tell, man.
She's a robot.
And she's like, yeah, she's like auctioning off her voice to AI.
Yeah. Did you see the viral tweet making the rounds of her tattoos? She like got this crazy scraggly like
they look like
tattoo on her leg,
red scratches, right?
Yeah, and she tweeted like, "I changed my body from the way God made it. It reflects my altered mind."
That's what she said?
Yeah, so all these people are quote tweeting it with like the, you know, dumbest tattoos ever, being like, "I changed my body from the way God made it. It reflects my altered mind." Just like, sounds like a Hot Topic teenager, like writing in their journal.
Yeah. Yeah, she looks like a Hot Topic teenager.
When she did her Song Splitter interview, she was like, Oh, sorry, I'm talking really fast. I have a cold, so I smoked a bunch of weed right before this interview. She was like
To help her cold?
talking a mile a minute. I think just to feel better, like, oh, I feel like shit. Smoke some weed and get ready for this, but...
Nice. I mean, I like Grimes. She's a weirdo we need.
Do we need her?
Yeah, I think she makes cool music.
A couple records back.
Yeah, I guess, like, Visions is the only one I really return to.
Yeah,
But it's so, so, so good.
can't deny that one.
But after that, I'm like, yeah. Anyway, cool. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're kind of go wider and talk about the state of psychedelic music in 2023, and specifically kind of use Darkside, who just came out with a live album, as like a springboard. And so yeah, we're trying new things.
What is it? What does it mean? Psychedelic. It's hard to define.
It's a good question.
Maybe easier to say what it's not than what it is. You know, like I feel like if you can identify, if you hear like a Michael Bublé song, it's like, okay, this isn't very psychedelic, but
Yeah.
you know, what it is might be a little harder to get at.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess maybe if you came out from like under a rock and you heard a Michael Bublé song and it really shocked you in like a psychedelic way, like that could be psychedelic,
Could
you know?
be a pretty psychedelic experience. Yeah.
But
I guess that's right. I guess it's all about like the listener's frame of mind, right? It's not objective, it's subjective.
yeah, I mean, psychedelia is like what? The movement from one state to the other. Could kind of roughly define it as that. But I mean, I think it's definitely something that's tied to drugs, for sure. But you can also make some amazing psychedelic music sober.
Certainly. It's high on life.
Yeah, I think anything like that does like sort of disorientate you or kind of zone you out or gives, transports you somewhere else. I think that's important. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know, like psychedelic music is something that's like always happening and going on. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it people don't pay attention to, or it doesn't get a lot of like critical acclaim. It's easy to like, that music's easy to like be kind of like a parody, you know?
Yeah.
I think.
It's easy to parody psychedelic music, you mean?
Yeah, it's hard to like almost sometimes be taken seriously, maybe because it's been so popular and like, I mean, the 60s and all that was just such a big thing, and it's always being referenced in pop culture, and, you know, the guy with long hair and a headband with a beard and, you know, who's playing guitars, you know, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because especially like that term now has been around several decades, and it's like, you know, psychedelic can mean anything from like dad rock or like, you know, there's like,
Exactly.
like if you look at quote unquote modern psychedelic bands, there are some that sound the exact same as bands, you know, 40 years ago, and there are some that sound totally fresh and new, and maybe you could categorize both as psychedelic. Like earlier, just for fun, I just Googled like psychedelic bands, and you know, it was like Pink Floyd, and then like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which I'm not a huge Lizard Wizard guy.
I'm not either.
I
but
know of them. I know they're a band that does like, they do like 5 records a year and are always.
They've like, I haven't dipped my toe in because it's like intimidating, but
Right.
they're also like, and this is like a whole nother discussion, they're like a jam band now, too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so like psychedelic music has always kind of been happening, but I feel like the 20th century kind of, you know, early aughts, I feel like it definitely had a comeback, I feel like. Would you call it like the second wave of psychedelic music in America after the 60s, or was there like a wave before that I'm missing? I guess maybe I feel like kind of the late 80s, there was some good like kind of minimal psych like Spacemen 3, and then
Yeah.
a lot of electronic music, which I mean, you don't think of it as like traditionally psychedelic. A lot it gets really psychedelic.
Totally. I mean, you're talking about like the drug influence, you know. I mean, I feel like when you get into the late 80s, early 90s, I feel like psychedelic and electronic have a lot of crossover. Like everything from like the Manchester, you know, kind of like minimal electronic club music of UK, which was very influenced by like, you know, ecstasy.
Yeah.
Which, you know, again, might have more in common nowadays with something like Daft Punk than what we might consider like psychedelic rock. But I mean, yeah, certainly like I think your definition of like, what did you say, like perspective shifting or like consciousness?
Yeah, like
I mean,
transitions and kind of these shifts in moods or states.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to talk about that term like over time, because like what may have been psychedelic, like I said, like 40 years ago, could now sound pretty rote, pretty basic to us now. Whereas
like you listen to like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, it's like okay, like yeah.
Whereas like in 20 years from now, like, you know, who knows what quote unquote psychedelic music might.
Well, it's like will we get to a point where like Animal Collective will sound anodyne, you know, and just straightforward because we'll have gone down such a rabbit hole of evolution that it'll just sound basic almost. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, looking back like 50 years ago, there's a lot of music that still sounds wild as hell. And
Totally.
and it holds up.
Yeah. You brought up Animal Collective,
As we like to on this podcast.
as we like to on Bonefish. Before we were recording, we were talking about how Time Skiffs, you know, is definitely an Animal Collective record, but I don't know, maybe one of their less like quote unquote psychedelic ones. It's like at the time we did that podcast, we talked about how it's like, oh, you know, you can tell they're growing a little older. It's a little more chill, but you heard some news that maybe their next release might be a little more like out there, which was sort of exciting.
Yeah, there's like rumors that Defeat might be the first single for the next album, like coming up pretty fast, and that...
Is that a song that's well known from like Live Boots or something? I'm not super familiar.
They've been playing it since like 2019.
Oh, okay, wow.
It's like that long 20-minute one. It's like Defeat, Not a Sweet, and there's like a lot of movements in it. But I heard that it sounds really different recorded, and that I think it was Noah who said that. I think people will be really surprised by how it turned out.
Nice.
So that's exciting. But like this idea of like the least psychedelic Animal Collective album, that's interesting. Time Skiffs, I guess it's up there. It might not be as psychedelic, but I think it's still experimental. Yeah. And so like, you know, but I don't know what else would be up there. I mean, yeah, certainly like it's more of Time Skiffs is more of like a traditional rock band setup, like drums, bass, keyboards, and weird sounds. Yeah. And then I just feel like some of the things that are psychedelic are just not that they sound trippy. It's like expectations. Mm-hmm. I feel like with this band, you'll like anticipate what they're gonna do next, and then they don't do ever what you think they're gonna do, and and that in itself is like pretty trippy, you know. Like I did not expect Painting With to be. I expected actually the album after Centipede Hurts to be more like Time Skiffs, and then when they came out with like Painting With, I was like very, very surprised. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about Darkside a little bit because I feel like they kind of... they've been like the kind of like psych rock band of the past 10 years.
So I wanted to ask you, so we like Darkside. Yeah. Do you think many Animal Collective bands also like Darkside? Do you think that's just something we both happen to like in addition to Animal Collective? Or
I think there's definitely some crossover. I mean, Darkside is, well, Darkside, like literally... they work with like a darker palette than maybe Animal Collective. They're like more kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say like snobby or intellectual version of psychedelic music. I don't know. Because Because I feel like Nicholas Jarre has like a certain sensibility. Like he kind of draws on like classical music and
Yeah.
kind of more of the avant-garde like music concrete stuff. But I think there's definitely crossover. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of similarities. For sure. I feel like Darkside's more rock than Animal Collective, you know,
Right.
obviously like with Dave Harrington. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think of, like you said, they're darker, bit sexier, like groove-based, kind of like...
Yeah.
Definitely more, I mean, the beats are all definitely, I'd say, more like straightforward than like an Animal Collective rhythmic approach.
Yeah, there's probably definitely more groove in a Darkside song
Yeah.
than an Animal Collective song.
And I would say, like, probably a lot more minor key stuff in Darkside. Though, in terms of similarities, and I know we're just coming off doing the Arc episode, but listening to that new live record, like, his vocals definitely made me think of like, Avi Ter's, like, Arc vocal approach, where they're certainly, like, very affected and, like, almost like a synth in, like, the live recordings. Like, it really, like, the legibility of the words is definitely second. Like it's
another instrument
definitely
for sure.
Second tier, and there's like, frankly, just pretty little vocals in Darkside music, especially the live album. Like he's singing here and there, Nicholas Jarre, but the live album is super awesome.
I agree.
It sounds really good. I love how like sort of kind of blown out and like raw and in your face it kind of sounds like the first track on it is Liberty Bell.
It's just like I like
it's
the
like a
live
classic
version. Psych rock song, like huge drums, guitar. I dig it. It sounds great.
I think I like that live version better than like the studio Liberty Bell that's on that new album Spiral.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so I wasn't like really that hot on their second album, the one that came out in 2021. I was actually like pretty disappointed because I felt like they were kind of holding back. But
interesting vibe compared to their debut for sure. And it's like
and
almost a decade on, and it's lots of that could maybe explain that, but certainly.
Yeah, and it felt like they were sitting on that album for a while because I think they recorded it in like 2018, and then COVID happened, and they released it like 3 years later. But once they got the drummer, like live drums, in the show that we saw him on last year, I was like, yeah, this is a direction they should be going in, like looser, kind of more like Afro, kind of more like Northern African kind of guitar and percussion and
the live drum sounds so good, man.
Yeah, it just sounds so great. Like I want them to like, I want an album with them three like as soon as possible. Like this live album, like even though a lot of the songs are songs that have been released, it still sounds like kind of like a new album because there's so much improvising. Yeah, and you can feel that energy. I mean, it's like, on the press releases they say he's a new member. Like it doesn't just say like they're joined. Which let me get this guy's name. I'm sure I'm gonna butcher it, but Declasio Esparza is the drummer. Yeah, he like, what is this thing, like sensory percussion or something like that?
I don't know.
I saw them kind of bill him as like, that's his thing, like not just on drums, he's on sensory percussion. Okay. He's on other things. But yeah, he's so good, and especially like, I don't know, Nicholas Jarre's like drum programming is so iconic. It's like, it's such, that's like his, I feel like that's his like trademark. He's so good at rhythm and like those like tight, hard-hitting drums. Yeah. Well, so I wanted to ask you, because like listening to Liberty Bell, the first track, are the first rhythm that you hear, is that programmed drums, or you think that's the drummer? Yeah, that's a question I have to. Because there's a point where, like, a minute in, it kind of it gets punchier, and like maybe that's when he starts playing drums over the beat. Yep. But it also sounds like it could be live drums from the beginning, and I can't tell, which is. I think for Liberty Bell, it kicks in with live drums pretty right away. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're playing along with like loops and stuff, and I think on some tracks there are, there's some of like the Nicholas Jarre programming drums intermixed. I'm sure he's got like headphones on and is like got a click going for the live jams. But yeah, it's pretty cool that like neither of us can really super distinguish
one or the other between the live drumming and the program
Well, I was like,
stuff.
that's what I was doing. Like, I was like going back like 3 times. I like went back just like to the beginning to try to figure it out, and it's like it could go either way. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of moments where it's both like kind of the live drums and the program drums, which I love that. I mean, Hannah Bear
totally
does that a lot.
Yeah. The second track, Golden Limit, where they combine those two songs. Yeah. Very, very tight. And yeah, like you said, like, you know, they're like a jam band, but they're also just, this live record proves that they're so good at
it's like,
organizing that or like reining that in. Like it's such a like sort of.
It's like everything's just a constant remix. And like I said, a lot of these songs aren't new, but they just sound so new and so fresh, like because of just the adventure they go on. And
yeah,
I mean,
Freak Go Home is like faster, and like
there's like a wah pedal in it too, like the Jerry Garcia wah pedal, which like if you like when this band started, like you would never think that they would get to a point where they'd be playing like there'd be like a wah pedal in Darkside. Yeah, but it's just it works.
Totally. Well, it's interesting because I feel like their second record, Spiral, maybe some of what like I rubbed against was a little bit like, I don't know, maybe you can call it they were leaning a little more on like the bluesy side, but some of the tracks like I think Liberty Bell's the one with like the
that one I love.
I like that song, but even
that
guitar line, other songs on that album like Lawmaker, kind of make me think of like the sort of like Western rustic like indie kind of acts that would have, you know, like think of like things like the Breaking Bad like theme music or like things that are kind of like you could see like a tumbleweed rolling by.
Cue the whistle in the desert and the tumbleweed, like
but I think that like the live jamminess really kind of, I think hearing them interpret that stuff in like a live jammy setting makes
so much better.
Yeah, and more fun, a little more.
It looks like because they're on a tour right now, and it looked like they're in the studio too. There were some shots of them in a studio, so
hell yeah.
I hope, and I don't know, I can't tell from the set list if there's new songs being played. It looks like there's some titles that I don't know.
Right, yeah.
And I think the last song on Live at Spiral House, I think that's the only new song. Lero.
Yeah,
it's not a cover.
Doesn't pop up anywhere else on their discography. So I
think that's maybe that's a totally new song, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, me and my friend, we still talk about our first Darkside show. We saw them in Boston in 2014, like in the dead of winter in a small club, and it was just so fucking good. It was.
Yeah, man, I missed them. They played at FYF here in LA. I'm sure probably that same year. And it was like the one indoor venue at the festival. And there was like this crazy disorganization that led to all these people being like stuck outside the indoor venue while they were playing. So I ended up missing the whole thing.
Dang.
So last summer was my first time, but.
Yeah. So we also, we saw them, Darkside's first show back, right, in 8 years.
That was their first one? Oh, damn.
In 8 years, that. We saw them at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which is this cool cemetery in East Hollywood.
Yeah, it's not a lame cemetery.
Yeah, like, people go there to party. You know?
It's an amazing show.
Yeah, that was another show that's just like an all-timer. Like, yeah, Dave Harrington, like, busiest man in fucking music. Shout out to Dave Harrington.
Yeah, so he's a local Angelino, I guess, I think, and he's also got Taper's Choice going. We've seen them together at least once. I think you've seen them other times, but
yeah, he plays locally in LA a lot, and it's always different. It's
definitely jammy, but
definitely
always fun.
Jammy. He's a busy boy. Also, just seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah.
as serious and like subversive as Darkside feels.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, hey man, like thanks for coming.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever had curly hair that long. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also I think it's like the middle track on the new live album, Dream.
Yeah. Super interesting.
Really interesting.
Almost like a island sort of party like.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a Jeff Parker guitar line, kind of.
Oh yeah, wow! I didn't even think about
unaffected, like
yeah. That's so kind of
maybe the only
uppity and groovy. I like half expect to hear a guy going like,
yeah, well,
off the
exactly. Like that's like the only, like the first and only like happy Darkside song.
yeah,
Which is so like that I love, man, because it's like they haven't done that before, and it's I think it sounds great.
yeah, unexpected, but still like very rhythmically complex and interesting. I love Nicholas Jar. Have you heard much of his solo stuff, or have you like followed?
Of course. Man.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved Cenizas, which is his last solo album. It'll always, for me, be tied to the beginning of lockdown.
Is that the one with the face with like the inverted nose?
Yeah, it came out
awesome
like
album.
March 20th,
Right, yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
or maybe
Like
early on COVID, and I
Day
remember
zero.
just like the world was ending, and like it was like shut off all the lights in my house, like lit a fucking candle, played that album, and it was just like
your essential oils going.
yeah, just expelled everything.
Yeah, he's a G.
That album I think is really good because I feel like he kind of went through a moment where he was just kind of like shunning everything and I don't know, like purging something. Like I think he like stopped drinking and smoking and like bounced to like
Interesting.
overseas or something. I don't know, but yeah. How about you? Were you keeping up with him?
Yeah, big Jarhead. Also my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal film, coincidentally. I haven't even seen that actually. Have you?
I haven't seen it since like 2005.
Yeah. It's like about a soldier who's like pissed off that he doesn't get to like shoot more people or something like that. Yeah, love Nicholas Jar. I mean, I think I first encountered him through Darkside, but you know, through that found his solo stuff, and love Against All Logic too. His like dance moniker. Have you heard any of those records?
Hell yeah, dude. So good.
I love that shit.
That stuff's great.
Yeah.
Love it all. I mean, probably the only thing I didn't like was the second Darkside album. You know, I've tried many times to give another shot, but I feel empty.
Yeah. Well, next time you do, you know, now you have Spiral House to
Oh yeah.
fill that void.
Yeah.
Love you, Nick. Keep it up.
So if you had to kind of describe where psychedelic music is at in 2023, what would you say, or what is it?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit what I said earlier, like it's hard to define because on the one hand you have psychedelic bands that are like, okay, I'm calling myself that, but I'm also referencing psychedelic music of decades past, and then you have like, I think like newer, fresher stuff, like been listening to another Matador release, Water From Your Eyes, which is that Brooklyn duo.
Yeah.
They've got like I think a handful of albums out, but I've only just heard their new one, Everyone's Crushed.
Yeah.
Which is struck me as super imaginative and pretty like fearless creatively. You know, some of it has like really experimental flavor, like kind of 1-0 tricks or even like Death Grips stuff at times.
For sure.
But then you have the kind of very unadorned, kind of innocent vocals on top, which give it kind of interesting layer. But yeah, I dig that record. Were you ever into Palm? They just broke up, sadly. Like
No, I've never listened to
last
Palm.
week, but their debut record, Welcome to Rock Island, was pretty sick. But they were definitely a band that when they came out, you could kind of see them as being in the lineage of like Animal Collective. Like the vocals were very sort of A.V. Terror-esque and kind of like a little bit alien sounding, but
I'll have to check that out.
yeah. I feel like things like drug culture becoming a little more mainstream, and that might lend more people to like adopt like a quote unquote psychedelic
that's
tag that
that's
maybe
the
they
thing, like,
earn or don't actually earn.
it's kind of like kind of everything is psychedelic.
Yeah.
Like everything's got like a psychedelic sheen to it now.
Yeah, I mean, the internet is incredibly psychedelic, and so much music is...
Have you read the news lately? It's pretty psychedelic, pretty trippy.
Yeah. I guess, like, yeah, it's a good point. Just, like, a lot of culture, like, even, like, comedy. Like, I Think You Should Leave sort of just feels like you're watching comedy on mushrooms. Like, it just feels like reality is being stretched in front of you, but...
Yes, everything is kind of like psychedelic music now a little bit, or it's kind of harder, it's kind of dispersed. I agree with that. I do think, like, more broadly speaking, you know, we went from like kind of early aughts and bands like Animal Collective and Deer Hunter and Grizzly Bear. That's when psychedelic music kind of became electronic and artier, you know, and then that kind of stopped. And I think kind of the past maybe 5 to 10 years, like, it became a little bit more like popular, and like, you know, jam bands kind of came back, like indie jam bands like William Tyler, Cass McCombs, Dave Harrington's a perfect example, kind of just more guitar based. I think it kind of went to that, and I think we're still kind of living in that. And then the other half is like, I think it's like kind of turned to like more like new agey ambient stuff.
Yeah,
and that Leaving Records is a great example of that, you know.
Which is an imprint of Stone's Throw, which, while traditionally hip-hop is actually just has a bunch of stuff, but Leaving Records specifically, their kind of tagline is like all genre. But yeah, certainly a lot of it is on the more kind of chill, quote-unquote ambient side of things.
Just kind of the more, kind of like one large come down in a way.
Definitely.
I mean, that's huge. It's everywhere. Kinda.
Yeah, definitely had a big couple of years.
Darkside, which is kind of like really swinging for the fences, is like a psychedelic rock band. There's not really much other ones. I mean, I would not call Tame Impala a psychedelic band anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one I thought of too, to like bring up, and then like, okay, where on the spectrum are they? I mean, like I say, yeah, it's like, all right, they use like phasers on their guitars, and it's like there's synths and stuff, but it's like, okay, come on, they're like a pop band, like,
yeah, they're like, he wants to be like Michael Jackson now, and
yeah, like indie rock does not just equal psychedelic rock. You know, like Vampire Weekend's not a psychedelic band.
No, though they are, you know, cornering that jam band market. And I was gonna say, like, I think the Dead have really become popular again, and that is for sure psychedelic music.
Yeah,
but like I said, it's more in the jam band lane that's kind of like riding for psychedelic music right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes next, and if, like, I feel like we're due for like a kind of a dirtier, kind of harsher turn, maybe, after this few years of new age gloss and
palliative
wellness.
Yeah, just
fuck this wellness shit, man. Let's do some hard drugs and make some weird ass fucking music.
What do you call it? Hospice. Hospice music.
Yeah.
Just gently putting me to sleep before I die.
It's so funny. Hospice music, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love that stuff. I mean,
yeah, that's why I think Water From Your Eyes kind of like caught my ear. Like they
stick out.
Different from Animal Collective in that it feels like very much kind of like in the box. Like it's like feels like a music made in a computer, you know, not like a lot of Animal Collective music, which starts from like a dudes in a room kind of jamming place. Like Water From Your Eyes feels like starting off, you know, with an Ableton session, but it does feel like very angular and a little bit harsh.
Yeah,
and like
the guitars and
like you said, sort of punk.
I think
in places, and
definitely a little punk.
Sort of reminded me of like Health. Did you ever listen to Health? Like, yeah, dude.
Yeah,
like early. Or I guess sort of mid to late aughts LA like noise rock bands.
Yeah.
I mean they're still doing stuff, but I kind of mostly think of them as like being in LA in like 2008 and going to the Smell and like just not knowing what you're gonna get, and just band like that having so much kind of like energy. Some of Water From Your Eyes reminded me of that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is the beginning of that. Just something more jarring or in your face, or who knows?
Well, tight. This has been Bonefish. Thanks for listening. Gonna get back on the record train soon. Planning on talking about Strawberry Jam with the LA-based artist Maral, who opened for Avi Terre when we saw him just recently, and also just announced is going to open for Panda Bear when he's in town in July with Sonic Boom at the Bellwether, new venue here in LA. Stoked to check that out. If you got your tickets,
I'll be flying back home, so I'm gonna see that Panda Sonic Boom show in New York.
Oh, nice.
Which I think is with Braxton Falcon.
Oh, tight.
Yeah.
Damn.
So we'll have to maybe do an emergency live pod
Dope.
review. I don't know, but
During the show, just FaceTime me.
during the show, yeah.
I'll record it.
Hey man, this is so cool. Love music.
Hell yeah. And yeah, thanks to the listener who sent in the voicemail at the top of the show. If you want to send us a message, it's super easy to do on Instagram, actually. We found out.
Oh, yeah.
You can just message us on Instagram, hit the little microphone button, and then I figured out how to download the audio from those. So if you have thoughts on current state of psychedelic music, what that even is, thoughts on Darkside, Animal Collective, as always.
Yeah, send them in.
Send them in. We're at Bonefish Pod on Instagram. Not really on Twitter at the moment. Feel like that website's rapidly deteriorating, but we're on the gram. You can follow us there. And yeah, as usual, if you're digging it, share it with a friend. Leave us a review. Sitting pretty at like 4.8 right now, but help us close that gap. Sick, dude.
Sick.
Bonefish.